Here we go. All right, guys. Welcome to Classified Diver. This is our first time teaching this here. Classified Diver program is the adaptive diving program, sometimes called Scuba ability as well. And the idea we're going to go through and we'll learn why we classify certain divers at certain levels, what makes them classified in that way, and then how we can help them go through the process of becoming open water certified as well. And so that's what the classification program is. I like the term adaptive diver a little bit better because we're adapting situations to allow others to be able to go through. And we're going to go through all the ideas of what those processes are as well. So after completing this course, this lesson, you're going to be able to listen to identify the 3 levels of classified diving, discuss the philosophy in classifying a diver based on ability, not their specific medical condition. Review the SSI training standards for classified diving and classified buddy programs as well. The value to you is the classified diving program is intended for classified divers that have limited mobility with a qualified and certified buddy so that they may be able to fully enjoy diving safely. And safety is always the key point of that. Upon certification, successful completion of the classified diving program, students will be able to assist a dive buddy with a classification level 1 through 3. And to assist a diving buddy, who will require additional resources to be able to dive. This is the SSI Classified Diver program. Is the only course with an actual certification. The rest of the courses out there aren't actual certifications. This actually certifies the diver to be able to dive open water in a classification level. The idea behind the classified program is all about community and inclusion. Right? We want to make sure that we're adding and allowing people who want to dive, want that freedom of mobility from whatever challenge that they have to be able to be a part of that. And it's a physical freedom. I mean, think about the idea is if you were a paraplegic, how much more free would you be able to be in the water? You all know I have some back challenges, and I can tell you there's been times where I've been forced to, not because I was just being mean, to make my assistants carry my tanks for me, pull my tanks out or carry them out of the water. I just wasn't able to, but they can tell you, Josh being one of the fantastic people that's helped me through that process sometimes, that once I got in the water, was there any sign of, exactly, and that's kind of one of the cool things about it is there's a freedom in the water. When you have pain or you're limited in some way, that the gravity just doesn't apply to you. And it's also rehabilitation. One of the things I loved about this, and one of the guys I interviewed recently said it reduces the noise of the world. And those of us who have PTSD from something, right? You don't have to have gone to Afghanistan to have PTSD. A long trauma certainly classifies, but it helps with PTSD a lot. It also helps with tinnitus. My ears don't ring until I get back on the surface. So the main points we're going to talk today: the philosophy of classifying a diver. Classified levels 1 through 3. So this is Dan Metcalf, and he recorded a message for you guys. Potentially he recorded a message. There we go. All right. Well, he did record a message for you guys, and we'll go find it real quick. Oh, I know why it's not playing. Let's see. I set it as premiere because it's premiering for everybody else in the world next week. There we go. Well, it's set to premiere. Why is it not playing? Well, we may not get the message from Dan Metcalf today. do, but I'm. Here we go.
My service with Mint has been amazing. There's no issue switching over from my old.
That wasn't Dan Metcalf.
Hi, my name is Dan Metcalf. Most people know me as Wheel Dan. I'm a feedback instructor with Open Water Instructor in the UK. I'm also a SSI instructor at that in Grenada, and we hopefully will soon to be a dive on. I'm a TA paraplegic, so down, no core muscle, no leg movement, nothing unless it's fathom itself. I'm also a 3-time Guinness World Record holder for 2 times the fastest mile scuba dive in freshwater water with a swimming band and using webs. I use my hands to swim, and also the longest distance in fresh open water, 5.2 kilometers. This took 5.5 hours. So you're welcome to take me on if you want. Have a look at the Guinness World Record title. Yes, you should definitely talk about the technical diving instructor a bit more. I'm looking at setting 2 more world records. One was the fastest 10K, which we're going to need a little bit of support on, and that's probably going to be next year, bringing that back to the UK hopefully. And then the big one is the deepest parallel diver. I want to go 150 meters. So for me, adaptive diving, if you are disabled, whatever you would like to call yourself, whether you're less able, more able, however you want to be, if you want to dive, you should dive. There should be no barriers apart from the medical. As long as you can pass a medical and as long as you are safe to be underwater and you would like to dive, there should be no limitation. Nobody should say you can't, because that's just a barrier that you need to knock down. And when you do get underwater, you get rid of the noise of life. So if anybody's got cognitive disability, PTSD, it just gets rid of the guilt of life and calms everything down. It's a place that people do call meditation. It's a place of serenity, and it's a new world. We've discovered everything above land. Why not? Let's have a look at the world underneath and see how it changes every single day you go down there. Very relaxing place to be, and I do believe if you want to dive, you should be able to dive. I know a very good team of people, including this podcast as well, that will get you diving if you would like to. As an instructor for diving, listen and ask questions. Don't think you know the answer, because you don't. Everybody is different. Every disability is different. You're different to every person. Even if they're both the same level of disability, they're different. 100% different. Treat everybody as individual and treat everybody as a human. And just talk to them, ask them, is it okay if I do that? Or can you manage to do this? Or would you like help here? Just let me know if you'd like me to do this or do that. And just treat them as a friend, as another dive would, as another person. In water, for me, get your hands on. Don't touch me. You know, unless I want to be. I've seen divers that want to dive completely stood upright because they want that feeling of standing. However you want to be in water, there's nobody should tell you you can't be like that. Just do what makes you happy and how you would like to dive. That's it for me. Thank you very much, and thanks again for being on. Let me come on this podcast. It's fantastic.
So that's Dan Metcalf, neat guy, just a substantially awesome human being as well. We talked to him, and there's a full interview coming with him later next week as well. So make sure to tune in for that because it's definitely going to be worthwhile as well. Oop. And I just closed everything. Let's see. I am having all kinds of fun technical issues today, Josh. Why aren't you running this? I have notes as well.
Throw him in the deep. Let him drown.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Thank you for your guys' patience while I go through technical difficulties here. There we go. All right, so that was Dan Metcalf, and just neat guy, and he just kind of reiterates.
Oh, it worked.
Hi,
Now it works. There we go. I also talked to Robert Raffle. He was interesting, and I liked his idea here. He says, I haven't got a problem with being blind. He's a fully blind diver. He says, it's other people that aren't prepared to step outside the box and find a way around problems that I have the biggest trouble working with. And I thought that was pretty powerful. I mean, this guy's a blind diver and has innovated quite a few things for blind divers as well to be able to dive. And he's got a problem with being blind, with people not thinking. And so that's what as we go through this course, please turn your brains on, because this is a lot like the Marine Corps. We're going to adapt, improvise, and overcome. And that's kind of the great part about this is the idea is adaptive. That's exactly what we mean. We're talking about how do we adapt above and beyond. So class question, what would you want to create various classifications for divers with additional needs? Why would you want to do that, guys? Why would that be important? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think I was gonna say Dan said it best, right? Everybody's different. Not all injuries or disabilities are the same. So each injury or disability is going to bring about its own set of complex problems to deal with underwater.
Absolutely. Megan?
It'll just prepare you to know what their needs are. Like, class 1 is this, class 2 is this, class 3 is this, so you have a better idea of what their capabilities are and what they're going to need assistance with.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Mike? Standards. Absolutely. What can they do? What can't they do? Here's the bucket that you fill. You can certainly move from bucket to bucket. Absolutely. In fact, one of the interesting things with Mr. Dan Metcalf is he started out as a classified diver. He's a T8 paraplegic. And one of the interesting things kind of backing up from that is I was talking to him. He has another friend who's another T8 paraplegic. They both dive together, but Dan is a full actual open water instructor. And his buddy isn't, and he needs a different amounts of help because he's unable to accomplish certain things because of how his T8 is affecting him. So you could have two T8 divers need very different ideas of standards of care. And this is not to say that a classified diver 1 can't become fully open water. Dan Metcalf proves that. There's a guy in a wheelchair who's gone through, and after becoming an open water instructor, he decided he was going to go to the arm pedal bike championships and become a world-class athlete in this. And he was set to go to Rio for the paraplegic games. And while he was on a 600-mile arm pedal race, I can't even fathom hiking 600 miles. This guy's riding a bicycle 600 freaking miles with his arms. He got hit by a car and had to have shoulder surgery. This guy didn't have bad luck. He wouldn't have any luck at all. But overall, that's exactly right. We want to make sure we go through that process. So classified diver, here's the classified layers of that. Classified divers level 1 through 3. And then they can move up from 3 to 2, 2 to 1. Most likely a 3 is not going to move up too far, but they can certainly move up then to open water diver. Once you become a classified diver, or open water diver, you can become a classified diving buddy. After that, you can move up to a dive professional, a certified assistant with that. And you have to be a dive master or higher and must be certified as a classified dive buddy to be able to move up to certified assistant. And a classified diver instructor, you have to be an open water instructor or higher. You must have been certified as a classified diving buddy or classified diving professional. So that's what we're looking for in terms of what's the progression and how do you get to that next level.
Is this talking about people who have a disability, or is this that
This is the whole.
As part of us in this class, then we will end up at the step of a classified diving buddy, so you could move up that.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody can move up to. If you're a dive master or higher, you can be a certified assistant. If you're an open water instructor, after you become a classified dive buddy, you can become a certified dive professional in this and instructor. So to be an instructor, you have to be a dive buddy first, or a certified professional.
That what certifies us in this class?
Yeah, you're gonna be a certified as a classified diving buddy, so you can help with that. And then once you become a dive master or higher, you can actually be a certified assistant for the class as well. The good news is as a classified buddy, you can assist in the class. You just can't help teach the class.
Sure.
So there are definitely some standards. So classified diver level 1 is a dive with one who has a classified dive buddy certification. The classified level 1 certification is for divers who can't swim or move underwater on the surface or under their own power. They can perform all the underwater skills, including emergency ascents, buddy skills, without the assistance. They do, however, need some assistance at the surface or entering and exiting the water. So what are some skills that we do in open water that you might have challenges with that would cause you to need to be a classified diving level 1?
Somebody that might not have the mobility of their hands. Other people may have it, need help with those skills.
Sure.
Get
What
to that point.
as you think about the skills you guys did in open water, though, as you think about those skills,
Giant stride.
giant stride. Yeah. So giant stride. What else might be as equipment assembly? Absolutely. Anything else? How about just entries and exits?
Making it more general instead of just a giant stride.
Yeah. So just entries, equipment assembly, where you talked about equipment care. We don't talk enough about that overall. Equipment adjustment. If I only had one arm, for example, I was above the elbow amputation, maybe somewhere below the shoulder. How easy is it going to be for me to reach over and just pull those straps down, right? Little things, right? And maybe I'm able to adapt to that situation. Neutral buoyancy. How easy do you think it would be to be come up with a good neutral buoyancy if you were a paraplegic like Dan? Yeah, right? Absolutely. So if you don't have any muscle from the mid chest down, which is a T8, it might be one of the fun stories Dan told me was when he was first learning to do dry suit, they had a problem with overinflation in his feet. And he says he would know when he had too much air in his feet because his feet would flap him in the face. And he'd say, "Oh, crap, my feet are floating." So
But aren't there other skills like even just deploying an SMB, right? Or a DSMB?
Yeah.
Things that we would take for granted of using two working hands.
Absolutely. And that's a great one.
Half of a hand signals. I mean, like, how do you tell somebody you just saw a turtle if you only have one hand? Or a lobster?
How about neutral buoyancy, power, inflate? Little things like that. So think about that. I mean, as we go through this, there's a lot of things that we all take for granted, right? That are basic ideas. How about if I'm a blind diver? Maybe I can handle all this stuff, but how easy is it for me to find the water? How do you know what depth you're at? Anybody gone to 100 feet and just found a place to hover and closed your eyes and hovered? Just enjoyed the silence of your bubbles.
Fair enough. How do you clear your ears? Right? Like this weekend, I was able to, pinch my nose and clear my ears several times. But how do you signal somebody that that's what needs to happen?
Exactly. So you think about those kind of things. That's what a classified diver 1 is they're looking for additional assistance, but they're fairly minor things. How do I get into the water? Maybe that's a difficult thing if I'm a paraplegic. How do I know what depth I'm at overall? So there's a key.
Excuse me. You know what depth? Number one, he is able to do everything in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So he should be able to see what his depth is.
Potentially, but as a blind diver, could he do entries and exits?
Well, then he would be a level 1.
So yeah, it gets tricky, and what we're gonna find is, as I've talked to different actual adaptive divers, is some of them should really be level 2, but because of sheer grit and determination, should a paraplegic be able to be an open water instructor?
As long as they meet the standard.
They're able to do everything in open water instructor. Qualify, yeah.
Absolutely, it takes a lot, but typically, your normal paraplegic's gonna be like, right? It's gonna be a definite thing. So it's gonna be a matter of working with them to see what they can actually accomplish, and what their level of grit, if you will, is going to take.
Doing things more challenging.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are some challenges that divers might have that would cause them to have or be a classified diver level 1?
Well, I know, like, reading through material, it talks about, like, big, like, elements,
Mm-hmm.
people that have, but, like, part of the reason I took this class is, like, he had back pain and he's not as mobile, and, like, I would consider my diver level 1. So I don't think you have to have some big, like, element, but just pure age.
Absolutely.
Can be a factor because they're not as mobile, they're not as strong, they might not be able to handle some of those in and outs.
And that's a great point, and that's exactly where I was hoping somebody would come up with. So certainly age, disability like that. There's times where I need help where I can't get crap into the water because it's just too damn heavy, right? I go through my periods with it, and Nikki's been wonderful in helping me through those times, and Josh has been right there as well and been amazing. But what about Down syndrome? ADHD, extreme ADHD, autism. Anybody ever worked with an autism kid or an adult? It's it's a different world, right? It's been my experience. Most autism kids don't want to be touched, right? But if you can get through to them and in their limited amount of time, a lot of times they can do the skills perfectly, but can they remember to do the skills, right? So we think about these big things. I've lost my arm. I've lost a leg. I've lost. I'm partially blind. I need help with different key pieces. But do we really think about things like brain injury, where I have a very low ability to remember past? I mean, I'm already a goldfish as it is. I've got about 90-second memory. But that's just being part of being blonde and being a guy. But there's other people who have that in a serious way, right? So we think about that, but start thinking about what are some of the things outside of the. We always think about the motorcycle crash guy, right? But do we really think about the autism, the developmental disorders? We've all dealt with that person who unfortunately never matured past the age of 10 or 11. So as we kind of go through that, think about that as we kind of go through this class. How would I help somebody with autism? How would I get them into the water? What could I do to help them experience that freedom? Because we all know how amazing this is, and now this is our chance to share it with somebody who might not be able to be is not a traditional candidate.
Well, with that being said, that you mentioned that, I think it's more than just learning all the skills of diving, but it's also learning and building a relationship with the person you're diving with, because there's a lot of quirks with any individual that you're working with that has specific things you need to learn about them versus somebody else that has something different. So you got to be able to build a relationship with the person, to build trust, to build whatever required to be able to be the best diving buddy for that person.
That's exactly where I'm getting to. And that's exactly what I loved about Dan's talk is he said, if you don't know, just ask, right? And ask every single time. Every dive, classified diver is going to be different in their dynamic, right? 2 T8s are not going to be, we could have 3 T8s come in over the next week, and every one of them is going to be slightly different, right? A T8 spinal break. It's a mid chest. So
I don't necessarily think the person like there was a few weeks ago they did a dive experience with the scout group or something cool, and there was a young man who was obviously probably on the autistic. Couldn't stand wearing the PT because of how it felt against his skin, but I don't know that he could vocalize that. Like I understood that from talking to the just to be able to get him in the pool was a huge monumental effort. So understanding and talking to that person may be great, but given who it is, they may not be able to vocalize that, and so you may have to reach out to their support group to better understand as well.
absolutely. Anybody else? So now kind of thinking about that, somebody with brain injury, sensory disorders, developmental disorders, extreme ADHD, autism, Downs, what's your role? David, what would be your role with somebody who has a developmental disorder as a dive buddy for them?
Help them, keep them safe.
Absolutely. Maybe drill down just a little bit more. So you're going diving with Marcus, who is has Down syndrome and is 14 years old.
I would treat him like any other dive buddy and ask him what he, if I can help him with anything. Watch him. I was a scoutmaster for 19 years, and we had all levels of abilities and disabilities. Everybody to their level of ability with the appropriate expectations. But let them know that if they need anything, just ask. I wouldn't treat them any different. I would just be more aware, make sure it's safe, and
Absolutely. Mike? So if you're a dive buddy with somebody that maybe they just lost their hand, how does that look for you? What does that look like as a dive buddy? Mhm.
Thought a lot about this with my brother and whether or not we can take located.
Absolutely, and that's a great point as well. And so, and you're beating the punch. We're going to talk about exactly that in a little bit, but that's a great thing. So as you guys start thinking about this, think about how you might adapt, not only how you deal with them, but the equipment that they're using, or maybe the equipment you're using as well. One of the neat experiences that Nikki and I had a few years ago is we were in a tech class with a guy who had lost part of his arm. He was an amputee below the elbow on the left, and he was taking a tech class. And I thought, good for you, buddy. He was not adaptive. But one of the skills, as everybody in tech knows, what's the skill you just do over and over every single dive you're going to do? You're going to launch an SMB every single time. How easy is launching an SMB with one hand? Some of you can't do it too. So he had actually found a place in Europe, AP Diving, that makes a self-inflating SMB. It is, and it's freaking awesome. It's a small cylinder. He hooks it up to a cylinder. He turns it, opens the cylinder, the middle mini cylinder, opens up his main cylinder. It charges it, closes them both up, takes it off, screws it back on his SMB, rolls it up, hooks it to his line. Once he gets down, all he has to do is get it out, unroll it, unclip it, flip the switch with one hand, and it just sends it to the surface. It's a pretty cool little system. If you ever get a chance, look them up. But
I want one.
I'm right.
I don't even care that it's a special needs thing.
Exactly. It's about $300. They're all in, and they do have colors. They have what do I say? They have yellow, orange, and they do have black for all you Navy SEALs out there who actually don't want to be found. I haven't
So
figured.
it's
I think one of
counterproductive.
the other things with this too,
Exactly.
and we say a lot within the open water class, that it's not about our speed of doing things, but the students' speed, right? So recognizing that some of these people may not need a lot of assistance, and may just take them more time.
Absolutely.
Communication, I think, was the key. Talked about autism and all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to remember, just because you have two autism students, or buddies, two Down syndrome, they're not the same. Never any two are like you and I will never be the same. You have to be able to.
Absolutely, and that's the key. Is absolute patience with good communication to be able to go through that portion. You know, a lot of the stuff, and we talk about this in open water, and one of the things I pride myself on is telling the students, look, I've done this a million times. It's not a big deal. I want to go at your pace because I realize this is your first time. Help me understand what you need from me so that I can help you with that. And we'll go, if it takes you 1 breath to clear your mask, great, you're a superstar. If it takes you 10 breaths to clear your mask, great, you're a superstar. This is only a pass fail. It's not a,
Not a race.
it's not a race. And I take pride in that I've never once timed my students on launching an SMB, clearing their mask. You get it when you get it. As long as you get it, I'm happy. I don't care if it takes 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Take your time.
This isn't even just about the class and having the patience for how long it takes to assemble gear or anything else. Like, I'm assuming that Dan's pretty proficient and it probably takes him less time to assemble gear than it does me sometimes. But I recognize that there are other people out there who, after they're certified, may take more time to do things. Like, I even think about descent. Like, there's a lot of times that I could probably slow my descent down and clear my ears more often and probably have less pain than what we typically do. So recognizing our dive time and profile and what that, planning may look different diving with somebody than it is for the rest.
Absolutely.
Familiarize yourself with your,
Absolutely.
see
You,
what they have, if you don't know how it operates. Good thing for you to learn too, because you may be.
and that's a good lesson for just open water in general, but it becomes a whole nother level of imperative with your dive buddy as when you're a certified dive buddy assistant for somebody who's classified. Their gear may not be where you think it needs to be. Just because you think that their reflator should go over their left arm and their hoses, their breathing devices should go over their right, doesn't mean that's where they're at. So think about that. Yes, sir.
I don't think we've mentioned anything that we went.
Right?
So when we were up at Bear Lake, Nikki, the little lady over here, had to help me 6'2" in and out of the water. Right? She had to help me with the gear. Asked me how she could help. I asked her for help. It was the same as we're discussing here. So I'm that we'll learn some skills and maybe some techniques that for people who are less capable than I am. Still, I'm not a classified dive level 1 person, but I certainly could have been classified dive 1
With the
getting
way.
in and out and so forth. So I think it should. It's everything that everyone said. It's compassion. It's with the gear. It's everything that we try to be as a diver.
Absolutely. And so, as you can see, as a classified diver 1, they're minor skills that are there's challenging for one reason or another. Now, as we're kind of noticing, is it possible to go from classified 1 to classified 0, which is we are all classified 0s. We don't need any adaptive or classification to dive, except for Ben.
We're unclassified.
We have no class. Can be said of a lot of us. But so could somebody with that go from classified 1 to classified 0?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with artificial limb or missing a limb or whatever. It has to do with the definition, their ability to perform all underwater skills, including emergency ascent and buddy assist, out assistance. Okay?
Absolutely.
So if they can do that and get in and out of the water, you're no longer
Absolutely.
Part of me thinks, just like you stated, that there are people who probably when they started needed a lot out. Like, I think back to the guy that we dove with on the boat that had one leg, but he was diving rebreather. Like, he managed to get himself on the boat, managed to get himself off the boat and into the water all by himself. Like, I would imagine that somewhere along the way, during his training and development, getting to the level of being a diver, he had to have prior to being self.
So we dive with a guy named Skip, and Skip is 70 plus years old, and he has an above the knee on his left amputation. He drives CCR, and nobody helps him get in and out of the water. He does it all by himself. When he gets the ladder, he gets his fin off, he gets it clipped, and he bounces his way from bottom to top. When he gets ready to get off the boat, he gets his fin on, he flops himself on the deck of the boat, gets his CCR hooked up. He works his way down to the boat. When they call dive, he forward rolls straight in, and man, that boy can swim. And he's got a great sense of humor. He offered me his left fin one time. He said, I've got an extra one if you need one. And he also boxed all his stuff up. They got it off the boat for him because it was just a valet boat. But once they got it off the boat, he boxed it all up himself, and he drug it to the curb, went and got his car, put it in his car himself. I mean, good go. Skip is 70 years old. I don't know that I'll be doing it at 70 years old. Near this guy's got one leg, right? So classified level 2. So what are some skills that we might have challenges as a classified level 2? Read through, you got your definition there. What do you think? Thinking back to your days, which for some of us haven't been that long, some of us been longer than others. What are some skills that might be challenging for a classified level 2 that he might have to have assistance with? Yeah. How about just starting in open water? How about the 25-meter surface swim? You think that might be challenging for somebody that they might be able to not be able to get through that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The descents, safety stops. What are skills? What are some skills that you think might be challenging for a level 2? What happens if you run out of air? Mm-hmm. We're more likely you're his dive buddy. But is he going to be able to be the one to share air with you if you run out of air? If he's missing both of his arms, for example, which is absolutely a classification.
You're gonna have to make sure that he's equipped in case that situation happens, that you're able to grab a piece of his equipment to give yourself air.
Absolutely.
But this classification doesn't say he can't do that. Swimming doesn't say air.
But including,
especially in the event of a low
yep.
So like part of me thinks like
Might be a challenge.
Or rescue skills.
Rescue skills, absolutely. How is he? If you two are at the surface and you start going down and drowning, can he do a rescue approach? Or she, or they? We'll make sure to get all the pronouns in there. Delayed surface marker buoy.
simply something is like just being if they have a hard time just swimming in general, what's to say that they can even achieve natural buoyancy?
Exactly.
Like just to be able to, because I'm assuming with that kind of person, somebody, they're gonna have high anxiety anyway. So anxiety creates a lot of unnecessarily not being buoyant. So just keeping mindset and keeping in check and watching them to help them be relaxed. Like I've dealt with a lot of people that are newer, and just getting them to be calm and relaxed and getting to that Zen mode so they can get buoyant, be able to help them through each phase until they're comfortable. Keeping an eye on their air, keeping an eye on their depths to be able to control the situation to help them have an enjoyable situation.
You bet. So kind of going through that, what are some of the issues that might be cause them to be classified level 2? Missing limbs, absolutely. Paraplegic, quadriplegic. Probably not quadriplegic, but we'll get there. Spinal cord injuries, T8 and above. Cerebral palsy. Progressive disorders. We had Brett and I both know a guy who has a progressive disorder with his back. Has a very, very difficult time diving single tank. We're working hard to get him over to side mount. We just got to get him in the store. he's found plenty of things to keep him busy, but he's got 10% mobility in his back now. Yeah. So things like that. Developmental disorders again, maybe they're even lower functioning. Maybe they stop developing at age 8. Downs, autism, a little higher, a little lower on the spectrum. ADHD, ADD. We both know an ADD diver that probably benefit more often from a certified dive buddy with him all the time. So we know those people, right? We've seen them, and so we have to think about that. What additional assistance might they have? So what's your role as a classified dive for a dive buddy two? Now let's back up for a moment. As a classified dive buddy one or classified diver level one, how many dive buddies do they require? Just one, right? How about a classified dive buddy level two? I know it makes it kind of easy, and we'll get to the level three in just a moment. So now we have two dive buddies, and the reason why we'd have two dive buddies would be why, Josh?
Well, there's one person on each side. Just another backup, right?
Absolutely.
Also, buddy to the buddy of the buddy.
I was gonna say, I also
Exactly.
look at it as an emergency thing, right? Like, so that you and I talked a little bit about once you become a classified dive buddy, you really should go take a solo course. That's part of it, is that you're kind of on your own. You have dive buddies who can't necessarily help you out in the case of an emergency. So if you're working with someone who's a classified level 2 diver, that buddy is probably there just as much for you, like in terms of buddy to the buddy, than it is to the actual classified diver.
Exactly. So as a classified diver level one, I can get some assistance from my buddy, from the person I'm buddying with, right? There's some level of care that they can assist with me. They can do approaches, right? They can help. They can probably manage their own buoyancy to a certain degree, right? They can do a lot of that stuff. But once they become level two, they're not managing their buoyancy anymore. They're not managing ascents. They're not managing safety stops real well, right? For example, if I was blind, I'd probably be a level two more likely than anything. And at level two, we go back to that idea of being at 100 feet, closing your eyes. When you close your eyes at 100 feet, especially in Ryrie where it's pitch freaking black, and you just enjoy the sound of the bubbles, you could be 30 feet, 20 feet, 18 feet, 100 feet, 150 feet. If you've closed your eyes and truly just listen to the sound of your bubbles, the bubbles don't say 100 feet, 100 feet, 100 feet. They don't do that, right? It would be cool if it did. But I can tell you, playing the blind diver for my own course, we went out, and I didn't know I was going to hit the bottom until I hit the platform. When I hit the platform, I was like, oh, we're 25 feet. Okay. And I had no idea if I was kicking the bottom, if I wasn't kicking the bottom. I was certainly helping with propulsion, but I had no idea. So
It's the same point though, like if you have two assistants, and I'm one of those assistants, and something happens, have an assistant.
and that's exactly the point, is you have to have somebody, because now your classified 2 diver hasn't the ability to assist in any way at all, right? And if it is, it's extremely limited overall.
So something I would bring up, something I want to learn more about. One of the biggest keys that I've learned just in diving with people in general is communication underwater. How do you communicate with somebody underwater with all the extra things that you've done? I feel like there's a lot more to it when you have these classification divers that you talk more about and learn essentially above water, so that communication is a huge important thing when you're underwater.
Absolutely, and that's a great point. Is there a standardization of communication for somebody without arms underwater? No. Is there a class we can take how to sign to a blind person underwater? They can't see your hands, so that's not going to work really well for you. So be aware.
Well, they would work on a series of taps anyway.
Yeah, it would taps or hand movements or hand gestures, the Helen Keller approach. Those are all things. There's no standardization. And the challenge right now is, the way I see it at least, and going through looking at Dive Heart, looking at HSA, looking at SSIs, PADIs, and SDIs, and now these programs. There's 6 or 7 different programs right now out there, if you just add just those ones I just mentioned, right? How communicative have we seen the agencies be already with each other on anything? Anything even simple? Not very. They're not the most talkative, right? Patty doesn't really like to talk to anybody else. Now he is off. They're off in their own corner doing their thing. SSI, as big as they are, they're not the greatest at communicative with, they have great policies and great education, but they're not the greatest either. Dive Hearts, and there's actually a group out there through HSA called Dive Pirates. There's that works with adaptive specifically, and does an amazing job. But unfortunately, they get in their own realm and they build their process. And as we all know, that I could go in my corner and write a book about the important things I think about diving, and Brett will go into his corner and write the important things he knows about diving. And Brett and I have been diving for what, 8 years now, something like that. I mean, well, we've been diving together for 8 years, right? So we've been diving together for 8 years, and Brett is the one that signed off my assistant instructor. Would our books be the same? No, and we're friends. We talk all the damn time, and we're not going to be the same. So the people, if we don't talk, they're going to be different. So that's where we're in the challenge of this is, and be aware, is that we're in a very infant stage of the whole adaptive idea. So a lot of the ways you do this will have to be from between your ears and communicating with your diver. You have to communicate. If you don't know something, like Dan Metcalf said, ask. It's pretty simple, right? Communicate, talk. You know, we've got to go through this process. So as we go through this, we move up to the final level of Classified 3. This is the highest level. Reading our definition, what are some of the challenges for a Classified Diver Level 3? Yeah, absolutely.
Or even swim, like they might need somebody to be their propulsion.
No propulsion, yeah. Regular breathing, no mask could be a problem for them. All right. Controlled descent, that's kind of an obvious. Mask clearing, as Josh said. How about just purging the regulator? Breathing from a free-flowing regulator? It can all create problems, right? So as we kind of think about that, what are some of the challenges that we might see as a Classified Level 3 diver? What are some of the handicaps we might deal with? They're disabilities. They don't like handicap. We prefer disabilities. Quadriplegic. Absolutely. Say again? Blind. Blind could be absolutely be one, right?
There are some days that I take a lot of help in getting all of my gear on. I like to think that I'm fairly able-bodied, but I just think about putting a wetsuit on, especially if it's a warm day, right? Hard enough, like, for me, like, how do you do that? Help with that? So I just think, like, putting all of the gear on and assemble it, it seems to be like part of that would be easier if they're already in the water, right? Support the weight of the equipment. Like, it's all heavy. Everything.
Absolutely.
The good news is there's 2 other people that help you.
Well, in Classified Diver 3, how many do we...
There's 2 other people.
Yeah, you and 2 others.
Yeah.
So there's 3 people.
But with a Classified Diver Level 3, we now need 2 classified dive buddies and a classified dive professional. So you have to have a dive master or higher that's certified as a classified dive buddy, and you have to have 2 classified dive buddy assistants with a Classified Level 3. So now you have one person to run everything. You have one person on the left and one person on the right. So you have a buddy to the buddy, to the buddy, to the buddy. Because literally they're doing everything. You now have, and I don't mean to be offensive in this in any way, shape, or form, but you have a talking potato, right? Not underwater. They're not talking anymore underwater. That becomes the bigger challenge. So now
It's a flotato to you, sir.
a flotato.
Or a rock, right? I mean, because there are people out there who are not naturally buoyant. So you could have somebody like that that's a natural sinker, not a natural floater.
Absolutely. So you start to run into bigger problems. So think about the quadriplegic in this case, right? Overall, you have somebody that comes in, you have Stephen Hawking's, right? He can push with his nose to make himself, or blow into a tube to make himself go forward. But okay, here I am. I want to be in there.
Yeah, so how do you, for somebody like that, quadriplegic that has no movement, how do they signal to you that something's going wrong?
And that's what we're going to figure out.
You have to be watching it.
Thus the 3 dive buddies.
Right.
You have to have somebody that's physically watching everything from the front at all times. You have to have somebody to the left. So you have to, at this point, and good news is well, bad news. The bad news for this class, by the way, is Thursday, there's going to be a major catastrophe in Idaho Falls. You guys also realize that all of you will be involved in some way. So everybody in this class will, unfortunately, have some sort of accident. Somebody in this class is going to be a quadriplegic. Somebody in this class is going to be a paraplegic. There's going to be some amputations. Apparently, we're all on the same bus that crashed into the train and healed just before class. It's going to be amazing. And everybody's going to get a chance to be blind as well. So I would like to assign 2 handicaps to each student as well as blind. So heads up, you're all going to have a major catastrophe. So start thinking about that. What would happen if I lost my arm at the shoulder? What would happen if I lost my left knee or my left leg above the knee or below the knee? What happened if I had a T8 accident in a motorcycle crash? What happens if I crashed my plane and all of a sudden I had a cervical break? I mean, it happens, right?
Well, all this could happen during a dive too. Diving with a regular dive buddy, something happens and they're no longer able to use their limb. They're not able to do some things because
Absolutely.
skills help in every dive.
Absolutely.
One other thought, I know it's not as irrelevant, but as we go through the steps of this, and you're talking about classified 2, 3, and so on, what about the ability to work with the divers that are in the roles of like assisting? So it seems like even like we all dive together and stuff, but we all have different abilities too.
Mhm.
So like just being able to communicate, getting on the same page of how they're going to approach working as a team,
I like it.
handle that.
And that's one of the things, once you move up to that level, classified level 3, is not only are you now having to make sure you guys are doing something that you're not super accustomed. I mean, we're really good about talking about the pretty fish, right? But how many of us are really good about talking about the other piece? Hey, I have a challenge with this. I have a challenge with that, right? Ice diving, cold water diving, it's an entourage-driven sport, right? I like to think about it as much as close to classified diving as I probably ever had to be, right? There's a lot of times, hey, can you help me get this dang gear on or off? Whatever, right? There's more than once that I get my tanks put on, my twin sets put on the tailgate of the truck, and Nikki comes over and unclips so I can get out of the dang twin sets, right? It is what it is. But now all of a sudden, not only are you communicating with the other diver, but you're communicating as a team. Okay, Josh, Nikki, we're going to be working with a quadriplegic. I need you to watch his mask all the time. And if he does this, he needs to blow. He needs to clear his ears. He's having a hard time with that. If you see water in his mask, I need you to tap on his mask and tell him nose, and that you're going to pinch his nose so he can start blowing, or you're going to hold his mask because he's got water coming in. And just tell him your mask is filling, and I'm going to push here, and you push and do that, okay? But we start looking and you start watching, and so you got to create these communications. That's what's going to happen for you. With you, I need you on the left-hand side. You're going to be working the inflator. I need you to keep him in as close to 45-degree angle because that's going to be the safest for a quadriplegic. You're on inflator duty. Ben, you're going to be on the right side, and you're going to be on regulator duty. So you're going to keep a close eye on that regulator. Make sure you constantly see bubbles through this process. We've got to see these bubbles. And I also need you to watch. He's got some dangling limbs because he's a cervical. He didn't lose his legs. He's still got them. So I need you to watch those legs. Let's make sure that they don't whack him in the face because that's just going to be embarrassing, right? So all of a sudden now you're not only talking with the diver, but you're talking with a team of the diver. Not a team of the divers, but a team of the diver. So think about that, right? This is a very communicative sport, and that's the biggest. I think that's got to be one of the biggest takeaways you have to take from classified divers, is you have to be willing to ask. And we've all been in that situation where we've dealt with somebody that's handicapped, right? And we wanted to ask the question, what happened? How can I help you with something? Is there anything you need that I can do with, right? Dan, I like Dan's portion. He says, just ask him. Treat him like a dive buddy, like a friend. How can I help you? and be sincere about it. Not condescending, but sincere about it. But with Dan, he was very clear. He says, for me in the pool, keep your hands off. I like how he put it, hands off, don't touch me. I got this, damn it. But he has a lot of grit, right? Not all the divers we're going to deal with are going to have that same level of grit. Make sense? So continuing education on this, Nikki brought it up. One of the key things that you guys have to realize is when you go down as a classified diver buddy, a lot of times you're more of an independent diver. So we teach it here at Idaho Dive Pirates, the independent diving course. And this is not designed to be a solo diver. No independent course is designed to be solo diving, right? It's designed to help you dive independently of others. Because a lot of times we see that. We go out to the Caribbean, we watch that dive boat where we see everybody scatter in 18 different directions and they're 45 feet from each other, and if there's an emergency, they'd just be SOL, right? Very rarely are they working as a team. So what we teach here out of Dive Pirates is the continuing education portion of independent diving, to teach you how to have redundancy, how to use redundancy, how to be a thought process diver so that you're utilizing your resources appropriately so that you're able to effectively create a self-rescue more efficiently, how to carry additional gas source so that you're safe in that direction, how to carry an extra mask, what happens if my mask breaks. It's pretty rare, but it happens. I've had a mask break on me. Absolutely. So I definitely encourage, Brett and I are both instructors in that, and we love, it's a fun class for us to teach. I like to think of much as a one-on-one stress and rescue where I get to stress you out and have a lot of fun. You get to learn a lot. Just kidding. It's a fun class, and there's a lot of pieces to it. There's a lot of moving parts to go through, and there's dives involved as well. So I say any class that has dives involved is a good class. So I encourage the independent dive buddy as well. So I'm kind of giving you guys the answers. How would independent diving or solo benefit you as a classified dive buddy, Adam? How would independent dive class, or solo diver, help you be a better classified dive buddy?
Self-sufficient, and then also at the same time, because essentially you can't count on yourself to be able to help them.
Absolutely. Brett, you got thoughts on that one?
Words, two is one and one is none. Mainly because solo diver or independent diver, if you will, is going to have a redundant mask, right? So if my classified dive buddy didn't have a redundant mask also, and for some reason his mask failed, whatever, what have you, I suddenly need to give him my spare mask, which I would have if I were looking at it from this term, and that's obviously how you should look at it. Then what I'm going to be doing is putting my backup mask on this other diver. It may not fit them well. I probably need to have some way that I can help them clear that mask. If you have there's a myriad of symptoms that somebody could have that they still might want to dive. If one of those symptoms happen to include something a little bit more interesting, such as failure to feel any touch, right? If you have somebody that didn't feel touch, they're not going to know that the mask is flooded, except for the fact that they can't see, right? So if you have a seeing diver who lacked the ability to have touch, they wouldn't know their mask was cleared. God forbid that same person has problems breathing in through their nose, but there's so many different ways that person could benefit from somebody that gives up their spare mask and now says, okay, it's time to go up because we no longer have an extra mask. We've wasted that extra mask now, so now we have none because we each have one, but now it's none. Let's end this. Or that solo diver is going to have a clip-off pony that I can clip off of me, clip onto you, and I can put that regulator in your mouth. We can get it cleared. We can have you breathing on it. But now that you're on that, we're at the end of our dive. Obviously, we should have ended sooner than this, but now we have a second chance. And having that person prepared out there as a solo diver or as an independent diver with that buddy, it just gives them that many more resources that you can put in their hands and you can help them to use it.
Absolutely.
Listen to that though, part of that to me is comfort. Right? Like taking the stress and rescue class, a lot of what we learn to recognize is what causes stress in ourselves and being able to recognize that then with somebody else. But with the independent diver, it seems to me like it just escalates that, right? Is that you have to figure out how to manage your own stress so that you can then self-rescue or self-assist. So in addition to all of the extra gear that you have that you can then use for somebody else, you're also gaining greater comfort within the water to better be able to help rescue someone else.
Absolutely. Comfort through repetition. SSI talks about that in so everybody that in the room that's thinking about moving up to instructor, you're going to hear that term a lot. Comfort through repetition. David, what do you think that means to you, is comfort through repetition?
Muscle memory. When an emergency happens,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we answered the question earlier, but now thinking about the different kind of challenges and things that need to happen, can a classified diver upgrade to an open water diver?
Why not?
Exactly.
well, the guy that did the interview was
Yep. As far as I'm aware, and Brett, you correct me if I'm wrong, I only know one paraplegic open water SSI instructor.
More than I do. I know one-legged open water instructor. Well, actually, he's a tech instructor. I don't know, one-legged tech instructor from Florida. Other than that,
Absolutely. And one of the things that I laughed in talking to Dan, and you can certainly listen to his interview, he talks about, he says, no dive boat is made for me. He says, getting into the head of any boat or down the stairs so that I can go down and change, he says, because when I put my wetsuit on, he says, I have to get completely naked. And he says, for the love of God, nobody wants to see that. He's got things that he has to be aware of. I mean, he's got a colostomy bag. He doesn't use a P valve. He has a P tube in his dry suit. And he says, if you want a good amount of fun, he says, forget to hook up that P tube correctly. He says, I had that happen to me a couple times. And he says, I'd feel my chest and shoulders start getting cold, and I'd feel it. I'd be like, oh crap, my dry suit's full of water. And he says, I wouldn't know I was cold. So.
But I think part of the answer to this question goes to the ability, right? And part of it really is just knowledge and the ability to be able to perform the skills. So coming in to take an open water dive class, that person probably needs a lot of assistance. But over time, as they continue to have that comfort through repetition, they know how to put their gear together, or have the ability to put the gear together. They have the ability to be able to do the skills, right? Or some of that can develop or continue to develop over time. There may be classified divers who can't move one direction or the other, because I guess I have a hard time picturing somebody who's a classified diver level 3 of moving to a level 2 unless something changes within their physical ability.
Exactly. So a lot of it depends on the person, because as we've talked about numerous times, that every diver is different. Every injury, no matter how much it looks the same, is going to be different. You can put two blind divers together, and I've known plenty of blind people, oddly enough, that don't need any help. They live alone. They somehow make it to the grocery store and buy groceries. I think that's an impressive feat all to itself. I can't imagine me getting from here to Fred Meyer's and being blind. And yet they do it. It's pretty freaking impressive, right? And they make adaptations and how they do things. They figure out how to count money and how to put money in their wallet correctly so they can pay with that, or use the correct credit card. Well, I don't know which credit card is wanted unless I look at it, right? So it depends on the person overall. So the classified diver program you need to be aware. It's extremely important that as you move up to this point where you become a classified diver instructor, this is a very time-consuming program. The ratios are extremely thin. As a classified diver, it's one-on-one, unless you have a classified diver assistant professional. Then it becomes two-on-one. And then if you have two professional dive assistants, it's three-on-one. Or it's one to three, right? Sorry, not one-on-one, but one-on-three. So literally, there has to be one person for every diver, and that maxes it out. 2 certified assistants and 1 instructor for 3 divers complete. That's where it ends. So it's a one-on-one program. So one of the things that they talk about that you got to be aware of this is it's extremely seriously student-centered. It's challenging on the entire staff and very low ratios. This is not a program that you're going to go to Florida and be a classified dive instructor and make $80,000 a year. It just doesn't work that way. Anybody know somebody that's a paraplegic that wants to spend $2,000 to become an open water diver? No? Huh. That's weird, right? This is not a money-making thing. So being really kind of aware of where we're at and what you're doing.
Do you think that comes with a different mindset? Like, I know that we're all financially conscious of how much our sport costs and how much it costs to get into, but I look at it going, if I had exceptional pain from whatever my disability was, and the part of the way that I found relief was in the water, what would I be willing to pay to become a classified diver?
Sure.
Would it be worth that $2,000 to do that? Would it be worth the additional cost to have a certified buddy with me every time I then wanted to go diving?
And they're willing to do that, but just be aware that the profit point as an instructor for classified divers is very low. When you get into this to do this, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing this absolutely because it's the right thing to do. And unfortunately, the right thing to do doesn't always put money back in your pocket. So be aware of that and just kind of go through that process. So this is a quote directly from Dan Metcalf, and he says, "Mate, the biggest points are don't assume anything. Communicate. If you don't know, just ask. Don't expect anything to be the same between disabilities, as they are all different. We are all individuals." Dan Metcalf, he battled PTSD to become a scuba instructor with BCAS, crossed over to SSI, trained with Dive Heart in Grenada, and has 3 world records. And he dives side mount, so he and I were like instant pals. We talked about, and we're working on bringing SSI into the side mount realm as well. Amazing guy. I just think Dan is just the neatest guy ever. But we have this opportunity. We can do whatever we want, but be aware some of this is going to be PTSD. If somebody goes through a car accident or a motorcycle accident in Dan's case, they're going to have some PTSD. They're going to be mentally challenged as well with some certain things, right? I'd imagine some of the more challenged people that Brett dealt with in his previous life were the people that had PTSD or prolonged trauma from something, right? And we think about PTSD as being the guys like me that came out of the military and did specific jobs, right? And absolutely, I'll tell you right now, I have PTSD, and I deal with certain things, and he's been wonderful, dealt and helped me with those. Brett's got PTSD. He was a sheriff, right? But what about the guys you dealt with? Did you deal with a lot of guys that had PTSD from something? Right? It's huge. You don't have to be a war veteran, so be aware. So today, the first part of this class, and we'll take a quick potty break. You should be able to list and identify at least the first 3 levels of classified diving. We discuss the philosophy now of classified divers based upon ability, not their specific medical conditions. And I'd like you guys to go in and review the SSI standards of classified diving buddy programs. The good news is on all of you have your MySSI app. Everybody have your MySSI app handy? If you go into your courses, you can look up standards, and there is a classified set of standards for SSI. I encourage, before you deal with any classified diver, every single time, go and review the standards to make sure you're safe as well. Yes, sir?
How does Dan and others feel about being classified?
He understands. And that was one of the things you could see Dan was very much about I don't want help, I need to do this on my own. And so he was very determined to unclassify and move to that portion. But there's a lot of divers out there from what I'm hearing from Dan and understanding from talking to several of the guys who are actually classified divers, as well as Dive Heart in Grenada, is that they understand I'll never be able to be a fully autonomous diver, but I will do what it takes. You can classify me whatever you need, and I'll take whoever I'm required to take, as long as I get to go diving and have the freedom of weightlessness and ability to see the pretty fish and get away from the noise of the world. I think for me, if I were a quadriplegic, I would beg, borrow, steal, and do whatever it took to get 3 of you to take me diving every chance I got. I mean, how exciting would it be to sit in a chair, not being able to move all day long? I mean, we all can't be smart like Stephen Hawking's, right?
So, sounds like they appreciate the classification because that enables them,
Absolutely.
and they have safety built into the classification.
And I think that's a lot of it as well, is building up that trust level between people, right? That's one of the reasons Nikki and I got married. And Nikki will tell you that she said it was easy to marry me because if she could trust me with her life below the water, and the surface was easy. Direct quote?
Yep.
Direct quote. So I feel strongly enough that the handicapped people that I know that I've dealt with are more appreciative than they are resentful. The value to you again is the Classified Diver program is intended to classify divers that have limited mobility with a qualified and certified dive buddy so that they may both be able to fully enjoy diving safely. The main points we talked about are the philosophy, the class, and the classifications levels 1 through 3. Any questions before we get into part 2?
Does every open water diver have access to the standards?
Yes.
What?
The standards?
The standards?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody should be able to go to your My SSI app. If you would, just open your app real quick for me.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because I know I have it, but I don't know when I got the ability to be able to get into it.
And go to courses and go to standards. You should be able to get to standards. Where you find it? I would type in search for standards.
It's training standards.
Scuba training standards.
Go back. There should be one that's for classified standards.
No, it's in the training standards for recreational.
Oh, yes, you're right.
It's a
Yes.
sub one underneath
Tra-
there.
Not training center. It's in training standards. Yeah, I apologize. They had a separate section for a while in there, and they've recombined it back into this full standards. So if you go back in,
XR training, training center, public safety.
not training center, but I believe it is training standards. Load. Oh, that's freediving. I didn't see. Freediving, scuba training. There it is, right there.
Oh. Okay.
And it'll be towards the end.
Yes.
Yes, courses.
Classified diving.
Yep.
Outside or classified diving.
And like I said, it's still in its infancy.
So is this classified dive buddy program new?
It's newer. It's just been the last few years, and it's still growing. And in fact, there was training manual standard changes in early May while I was going through, because when I went through the classified instructor program, I went through the person who wrote most of the standards. We found an error, and it was corrected. Wait, I took the course on the classroom portion on Sunday. On Monday morning, the standards were corrected. And if you go to your My SSI on the page here, go down to Standards Scuba. There it is right there, Classified Diving Programs. Student level and professional programs. So please take the time to review that. Any questions? Perfect. How about a 5-minute break? Sneak it right behind Dave.